Should people share their beliefs? What is the relationship between conviction and tolerance? Is it possible to have an objective vision of truth without undermining civility? And if so, what principles should guide the way we share our vision of truth with others? All of that and more in today's video. Is it good for people to share their beliefs with others? As simple as the question seems, it's generated a remarkable amount of controversy in recent decades. While we've seen, on the one hand, that there is a powerful social movement that champions individuality and encourages people to boldly proclaim their truth, quote-unquote, without fear, there has also been an equally powerful social movement that preaches tolerance and instills fear about the political dangers of uncompromising ideology. How are we to navigate this seemingly contradictory cultural paradigm? Is it good for us to stick to our beliefs and firmly proclaim our vision of truth to the world? Or is it better to let bygones be bygones, living by a code of you do you in the name of tolerance? To answer that question, it might be helpful to examine where these beliefs came from. Why does Western society at large seem so concerned with tolerance? Well, in the wake of World War II and its public revelations about the horrible atrocities committed during the Holocaust, and in the wake of the subsequent ideologically driven Cold War between capitalist and communist powers, a powerful collective fear overtook the West about the dangers of ideology and its power to make previously civil people do unthinkably destructive and immoral things. Perhaps no one expresses this sentiment best than the philosopher Karl Popper, who, although most well known for his works on the philosophy of science, nevertheless wrote an influential political work called The Open Society and Its Enemies, in which he argued about the dangers of ideological strong gods. Popper argues that the common thread between totalitarian ideologies is that they construct political idols that subject the individual to the collective in the name of some sacred ideal that transcends the dignity of any one person. While Popper gave several examples of such political idols, including nation, race, class, and the trajectory of history, he also expressed a more controversial position that has nevertheless become deeply influential in contemporary culture. Belief in objective truth, or at least belief that objective truth is knowable to any one individual, is itself a justification for totalitarianism that must be dismantled. Popper took aim at the ancient Greek philosopher Plato for what he called the position of essentialism, or the belief that reality can be objectively explained in terms of universal essences. If philosophers can claim to know reality because they understand essences, what's to stop them from imposing a totalitarian order on others in the name of bringing about a good that their subjects just haven't been enlightened enough to understand? How might one respond to Popper's observations? Well, it's certainly true that a sense of certainty can be used to justify totalitarianism. If one is so certain that he is right and another is wrong, he may believe it justified to use force to implement his vision of the good. However, just because one could turn to totalitarianism because they possess a sense of certainty, does not mean that such a thing is bound to occur, or even is likely in most circumstances. The medieval philosopher Thomas Aquinas, who possessed very strong convictions about the truth of the Christian faith, wrote in his Summa Theologiae that the purpose of law is to instruct citizens without overwhelming them, and that while it may be justified to ban some evils for the sake of promoting virtue and preserving the common good, in other cases, while still acknowledging the evil of an act and preaching against it, it is nevertheless better not to criminalize it, because doing so would cause more harm than good. In other words, while Aquinas did believe that law and government should be based around an objective vision of good, he also believed that totalitarian control over the populace was counterproductive to the aim of promoting the good. If I can summarize, While totalitarians are almost universally certain in the rightness of their own ways, not everyone who possesses strong convictions that they know objective truth will be totalitarian. As such, desires to dismantle belief in objectivity are an overcorrection. What about the other side of things? Those who argue about boldly proclaiming your truth, while living by the mantra, you do you. While emerging in part from the anti-totalitarian cultural movement just mentioned, it also emerged from the philosophical school of existentialism, led by thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre. To keep things simple, existentialism believes that, in the absence of any universally agreed upon objective truth, or perhaps the absence of any such truth outright, each individual is responsible for creating meaning in their lives, since they won't inherit any meaning from beyond themselves. Such a position, deeply rooted in subjectivity, instills the belief that everyone's sense of purpose, and their vision of the good that derives from it, is equally valid, and that we should respect everyone's subjective vision of the world as a way of respecting their sense of identity, which is inextricably built upon the foundation of their subjective vision. How might one respond to this existentialist subjectivism? Well, as mentioned in my previous video on finding your sense of purpose, while subjectivism is part of reality, and that everyone has different experiences, goals, and circumstances that shape their sense of identity, that subjectivism is nevertheless necessarily contextualized by objective human nature and the truths of nature at large. One cannot establish a sense of identity contrary to objective human nature without running into problems. As further mentioned in my Living the Good Life video, while it's true that there are disagreements about the specifics of human nature, that there is such a thing as human nature is demonstrable by observation, and our ability to flourish depends on our ability to live in accord with our nature. While it might be possible to talk about your truth and my truth in the strictly limited sense of talking about our own experiences and how they shape our perception, we cannot use it meaningfully in the broader sense existentialists propose. Such truth cannot be considered truth in the proper sense, i.e., that which corresponds with reality, because truth cannot contradict itself. The principle of non-contradiction is a fundamental law of reality that is written into all things. As such, while there is value to respecting people's differing points of view, ignoring objective truth can actually cause harm to others, because it sets them down a path that may be contrary to their flourishing. So, if both of these positions cause problems, what is the solution? Well, like many things, the truth is a mean between two extremes. While it is true that sense of certainty can instill totalitarian tendencies in a person or society if left unchecked, and while it is true that it is important to acknowledge a person's subjective experiences as legitimate, so as not to strip an individual of what makes him or her unique, it is nevertheless still necessary to ground ourselves in a sense of objective truth, to know the good and help others flourish by pursuing it. How might we do that without running into the problems that these positions criticize? First, it is necessary to maintain a healthy sense of intellectual humility. As Plato's Socrates is famously paraphrased, "Awareness of ignorance is the beginning of wisdom." While it is not necessary to abandon your convictions or assume from the start that you are wrong, it is healthy for any kind of learning or intellectual discourse to acknowledge the possibility that you are either wrong, or, if you are right, that your reasons for holding the right position might not be as solid as you previously thought. Even issues that appear self-evident or certain might not be as self-evident or certain as you once thought. When sharing your vision of truth with others, therefore, remember that pursuit of the truth is hard, and that, even if you are right, others are likely just as convinced about the truth of their convictions as you are, and as such, their positions, even if you don't agree with them, should be taken seriously. Second, always contextualize the sharing of your positions within the principle of maintaining civility. What do I mean? Well, as mentioned in my video Civility Matters, civility isn't necessarily the absence of any kind of disagreement or negative feelings. Rather, civility is characterized by respectful, charitable, honest, and just interactions between people who may disagree. When you share your beliefs with someone, it is because you believe that your beliefs are true and that living in accord with the truth will promote their own flourishing. When contextualized by civility, sharing beliefs not only could, but in fact should, be an act of love. You are motivated to share the truth because you care about the well-being of others and you want them to live in accord with the truth. What does this look like in practice? Take people's concerns seriously. And even if you disagree with their solutions, act from the premise that you respect them and that you share your position because you believe it is better for their own good and the good of others more than what they are currently pursuing. So, what do you think? Is it good to share our beliefs? Or should we keep to ourselves to maintain an atmosphere of tolerance? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can be notified when new videos are released. Also be sure to like this video so that YouTube recommends it to others. If you'd like to support this channel for as little as $1 a month, you can also become a supporter on Patreon. Links in the description of this video. I look forward to the philosophical journey ahead with you. While the pursuit of truth may be hard, and while disagreements may at times be difficult to handle, the path to flourishing can be made much easier if we approach each other from a place of civility and respect. Share your beliefs and boldly seek out the truth, but always remember, no matter how certain you are, to remain humble and to speak to others from a place of love. Peace be with you. This has been The Philosopher.